All right, I'm also gonna share my screen here. It's Ericsson and Tom. So yeah, the main thing I really want to discuss today. Oh, Robert, hello. We just got started.
Yeah.
The main thing I wanted to discuss today is really just this package fun.nix name. That's so if you go into the RFC here, we have, well, Sandra said default.nix. I think default.nix is not a great idea. We had some other suggestions here by Valentin. He said package funk kind of makes it more obvious that it's a function. He also suggested the idea of call package.nix, which I'm not a big fan of. It's kind of convoluting the names a bit. Then pfunk again. We have
you know that this is going to happen.
We also have package function, kind of spelling it out. That way there is no ambiguity. Package function, we have lambda as well, lambda.nix. We also had another comment by David down here.
Package.nix actually makes the most sense to me.
Yeah,
jokes aside, that does make the most sense.
Yeah, and so that's kind of also what I conclude here. Especially, so originally we kind of said package.nix no, because in the future we might want to have a non-function form of packages, and this name would be used for that. But we don't really have anything like that planned or even thought about it, really. It's just a possibility at some point in the future. I don't think we should influence ourselves that much because of that.
Yeah, we already have unstable stuff.
Yeah. And also, we can also kind of version these kinds of things. I think I mentioned this somewhere here. Yeah, at some point we might even version things, and then we can use the package.nix file for a different package format, if ever. Yeah, so I think package.nix is the best. We also got a bunch of hearts here by John Cole, David Anderson. So I think that looks pretty good. Do we have a consensus that package.nix is the best?
Sounds good to me.
So my one concern on this one is that that pattern is useful even for things when it's not a package.
For
which pattern package is useful?
The pattern of a thing that when called will produce another thing is useful even when it's not a package. So this is useful for library functions and overlays and configuration, like NixOS configurations, like various other things are dev shells, right? These are all things that are possible to produce via a call package call, and are not necessarily packages.
Yeah,
we just don't have we don't have a good name for the thing that, when called, can produce the intended outcome.
Yeah, well, I feel like to some degree it's kind of obvious and maybe not even needed, because of course if you have Nix, if you don't have a function, there's very little you can kind of do. You can essentially just write out JSON and kind of parse that. I guess, like, there's this RFC which kind of argues in that.
What is the evaluator I feel like called as?
Fixed point?
Thunks?
Well, okay, I know there's like a special, for the eval cache and the evaluator, there's like a special quality to files that contain no expressions that it is able to cache in a different way. I can't remember, blanking on the name of it. It's not trivial, but it's something like that. Anyway, sorry.
I mean, there is trivial in the Nix source code.
I didn't mean to derail.
Yeah, I know what you mean, but I think it's a bit different though.
Yeah. I do think, I mean, Tom's right in that the sort of dependency injection thing is very general, but I think the units right now are only about packages. So the sort of generalized units for other things is a future work item, just as like packages without the fun would maybe also be a future work item.
Yeah, I think for the things that are not packages, we don't want to automatically insert them via this mechanism, partly because we want to put them in their own namespaces, like the testers and whatnot. So I agree that it's a bit out of scope, but it is a fair point. I mean, yeah, call package as a dependency injector is very general. Yeah.
Although we did say that in the future we might move the packages/unit directory one level up to just unit/, and then it would make sense again to not only have packages and also like discover Nixos modules in a similar way, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and right, also we kind of rely on it being a package, and I think this is good to have as like the semantics. So you have a function, the function gets the arguments of all the packages, and you need to return a package so that we can guarantee things like being able to build it using Nixbuild directly, being able to use it as a dependency, being able to query meta and so on. And also being able to even use call package, because that depends on creating a .override and .override derivation, .override address and so on. So I think just for now, package.next is okay, but yeah, in the future we might have a kind of more general thing. But yeah, if we all agree that, yeah, Tom, I guess, what do you think of that? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah. I see this pattern as generally useful. So that's just kind of why I bring that up. I don't necessarily need this to be a blocker when it comes to like Nix packages. So fine.
Yeah, and we are. I feel like we haven't mentioned this too much in the RFC itself, but the kind of structure isn't kind of stable yet. We can still, of course, it would be annoying for contributors to relearn things, but we can still kind of make changes to it.
Yeah, and this is kind of where I agree with Sandro that, in essence, most of the time, this object that we're talking about is currently just called a default.nix, right? With the auto call package features that existed in Legacy and the way the composition occurs in Nix packages, this object is just called default Nix. And so that does lend some reason to just stick with that convention.
Yeah. I don't think it's right. I'm not sure if you're tending towards default.next again. I feel like we don't have enough reason to still use default.next. It's kind of a legacy thing that, I mean, there's no good reason to ever have needed default.next. Well,
it's not a matter of is that the best. It's more of a matter of if I go like if I would suspect if you did a broad search across the entire internets of default.nixes, I'd suggest the majority of them were something that are call packageable. And so it just happens to be that people have created them and made them such that it is essentially the object we're trying to name.
I will say in like the problem with default.nix is not that you can import the directory, but what the CLI does.
Yeah.
And we're, discussing the new CLI right now, by the way, and we could just point out that maybe the new CLI should remove that, and that default.nix is special for importing, but it's not special for the CLI. And then we don't have this, or at least, I mean, there's many degrees there, but one thing that you could do is it doesn't just try to do things on the default.nix in the current directory. And then you don't have that, why can't I nix build if I cd to the thing problem?
Yep, agreed.
Still meaningless word though. Default, are we talking about loans or something?
I didn't quite understand that.
I mean, default is a meaningless word, right? It doesn't carry any meaning except for maybe use this because we don't have anything else here, right? It's meaningless.
Yeah, well, it's meaningful if you look at the CLI and the import.
I mean,
there's
the
the default file.
the whole legacy.
Yeah. But
traditions
yeah,
still in
other
place
than
of
that,
Nix, but
Yeah.
it's a good time to get rid of that.
Yeah, I mean, it does have the kind of same semantics that package fun or package.nix will be the only file that's.
The semantics that it does have is wrong because those semantics are dictated by the old CLI, which tries to call the thing without any arguments, which is not the semantics that we're going for here.
Yeah.
We're going for call package semantics, not autocall semantics, which is very different, even though it's superficially similar. The inputs are entirely different.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm still to me, package.nix is still the best.
Yep.
Yeah. One nice thing about package.nix is that it's kind of a little bit of like a Hungarian notation where you kind of know what you're going to end up with. You know the type of the thing.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
And it's also if people are new to Nix, this will be very easy to learn. Why default.nix? Why package fun.nix? Why do I explicitly need to mention it's a function? I just want to declare a package kind of thing.
Most of the time when people do very initial learning of Nix itself, they just assume that first line in that file are imports. They just look at them as if they were just imports in some other language. The fact that it's a function doesn't even enter the understanding until much later. You have to actually explain this actually defines a function. It has to be given arguments to do so. They just see it as importing it from global scope and kind of keep going.
Yeah.
Usually it's then, a few months later, they realize, okay, no, this is a function under the hood.
Well, this reminded me of my idea. Well, I should say our previously discussed thing brought up by who knows at this point, that call package could special case package.nix. And then, in a way, it was always wrong for import to do the thing. Call package doing it, so you just read the directory name is fine too. Or I think the variation of that with this, or call unit that.
Yeah.
And the call unit could just straight up enforce it.
Yeah, I also like the idea of using a separate function for this if we make this a more kind of stable and public interface.
I wouldn't call it unit. Or call package.
Oh, right.
Probably.
Because there could hypothetically be other things in the unit. it's not the case yet.
I feel like probably we'd want like call unit, well, not directory, like unit root or something like that, which then takes like package unit and then returns a structure that contains kind of the intersected thing. So like packages equals modules equals blah blah blah. I feel like it would make most sense for it to somehow work like this. But this is just future ideas at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry too much about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if we want to name our special call package that's a bit more strict, then that's not really a name that will be visible to users anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If they're going to use it in top level, that's the only place they're allowed to use it. They might as well just call the normal call package. I don't think it's much of a problem.
Yeah, but anyways, this is future work, if anything.
Yeah.
So I think we have consensus here, right? That package.next sounds good. Yeah. So that's great. Other than that, I am not sure if there's anything major to discuss here. Let me just briefly look through these. There have been future work for categorizing packages. I'll have to add that to the RC. This is the naming. I guess there's a small thing about how the RFC should be implemented. So I'm not sure if I mentioned this last time, but currently the RFC says to a tree-wide migration will be performed, and then we have it be checked by CI. Yeah, the idea here would be to have a single PR, but I think it might be better to have first one PR that just introduces the mechanism, but doesn't perform a tree-wide migration, and then like just run it through the Hydra channel, run it through of Borg. Like, let's have people try this a bit to detect any like major problems we might run into, and only then, after like a week or two, we are going to merge the tree-wide migration. Then if there's any problems, we can iron those out before we do the mass thing.
Yeah, that sounds good. Like start with a couple dozen packages, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like a manual small scale test. I'm going to write the idea down here briefly. So have a first next package PR that introduces the mechanism and tries it out on a couple packages. Let people try it out. Have Hydra build it, etc. This way we can iron out bugs. And then let's say like a week later, I'm not sure if you have to be specific here. A week later, have merged
it doesn't have to be time specific here.
Yeah,
you say like, as appropriate, an additional PR, right? Like this is up to the judgment of the implementers.
Yeah. Or after that, another PR is done for merged after all problems are confirmed to be fixed, or something like that, another PR is merged. For the tree-wide change is merged. Okay, just do we have consensus on this? Okay.
Yeah,
Actually, I can't see. Wait, can you really not see? Oh, that's Tom's and Ericsson as well.
We Robert and I actually did something similar with the package config stuff of first setting up the infrastructure and then starting to convert all the packages.
Ah, yeah. Alex?
What's that?
The idea here of just having two separate PRs, one just to try it out, and then like a week later or so, we only do the tree-wide
Taking things
migration.
for a trial run.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, so I have on my action item. Well, I have the only one with an action item. Just writing the tooling. I don't have any updates there though. Just didn't get to it yet. Yeah, and we didn't get nominations. Still haven't been opened. I am not sure why.
I'll check the last meeting notes.
Yeah.
Sometimes things slip through.
Maybe people were having a busy weekend.
Maybe, yeah. Although it was on Wednesday, the steering committee meeting. All right, but yeah, does anyone else have anything to discuss for the RFC or anything else?
What number is it again?
What?
Maybe. Sorry, the last meeting was the 11th. I'm just double checking this.
The steering? Wait.
The steering committee one.
I do not know. Don't they have a repository or something like that?
Well, yeah. Sorry. What I should ask now is when this RFC was open.
Yeah, well, we have them every 2 weeks, so
right.
At the bottom, we actually list out when the next one's going to be. But we had a bit of a, I think this last one was somewhat canceled just because everyone was either traveling or gone.
Oh, right.
Okay. So it's kind of a skip almost.
I see.
Sorry. I got confused between January and February in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I will. So if there's nothing else, I'll stop the live stream. And
Sylvan, I do have one question for you. What would be the most helpful or useful thing, if in terms of help? Like, what would be the most useful thing to help you with?
Probably. I mean, the main thing is really just this tooling, and that's like if I could. Well, just working on that tooling would be most helpful. But if you don't have time for that, you could also review PRs once I make them, or just kind of review the code as it is now. Or also kind of.
So tooling and review.
Yeah, like developing and reviewing tooling.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And I mean, for the long term, I think the most helpful for this team would be to also kind of learn RNX and how to modify Nixpkgs code programmatically. I feel like that's going to come in real handy for the long term. Yeah. Okay, so I will stop the recording, but we can continue this